Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Level Up Lando, the show that takes you inside the struggles, the trials, the tribulations, and the occasional success that is the everyday challenge of my life as I pursue my never ending effort of trying to level up. I am your host, landing like a plane, now landing like a drone. And I'm coming to you from Truscott Studios, also known as my bedroom, right here in gloomy, gray, snowy, maybe not yet, but on its way, kind of a winter's day. This is going to be maybe like the third time it snowed this entire winter. Oh, today is Wednesday, February 11th at 2:33 p.m. And as I was saying, this is maybe the third time that we've had snow. As I'm looking out my window here, I see grass. And I mean, February 11th, that's deep into the winter. So this is one of the worst winters on record in history. And I don't have a ski pass. It's the first time I've never skied in the winter. I've got 0 days. And I'm not missing anything. So I'm not mad at it. Like I saved $4,000, which is kind of crazy. That said, this winter is about the quality of the winter is about the quality of my life at this particular moment. I am officially broke. I've got $0. I think I got $7 in one of my bank accounts. So I've liquidated my entire stock portfolio in an attempt to try to, and was able to do February's rent covered. Don't know for anything else. And just spent the last $45 that I have on food, which lasts, oh, it'll last a week, maybe, if I do a good job portioning it. So now I don't know what I'm going to do. Kind of freaking out a little bit. Just, I know something will work out. I've got a ton of job applications out there, and they're all pretty good jobs. So, I could go from being broke to making $75,000 overnight, maybe even like $100,000 overnight. And that's what I'm going for. That's what I'm gunning for. That's that I have a job interview this Friday as a breakfast supervisor at a hotel. And I do not want to do that. But right now, I'm so broke that I don't really have a choice. I've got to take whatever job I can get, whatever gainful employment I can get. I need money coming in. I don't know what I'm going to do here. So I got about 20 days, no, maybe like 25 days to before I'm going to have to pay March's rent. So a little less than a month. And I've been trying to trust the plan. I've been letting it unfold, and nothing has shaken out. So now I'm going to probably end up having to borrow money, and I don't know who I'm going to ask to borrow money. I don't know how I'm going to. It's not good. So ideally, I won't have to borrow money, and I'll have a job. Or if I do have to borrow money, I'll have a job, and I'll be like, a week out from getting a paycheck, and I can pay it back right away. But I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm totally lost as far as the only thing that I can make up for why I haven't found employment yet is I'm supposed to keep working for myself. And in that way, I got to give myself a little pat on the back. A little level up Lando. A couple of days ago, before I took off to go to the gym, I cold called, which is something that I've been regretting, or not regretting, but kind of sort of dreading doing. I don't know why. I actually really enjoy cold calling. I like networking for myself, and I like trying to close business deals. But for whatever reason, I have been pushing it off. And yes, or not 2 days ago, I finally did it. And I had one of the people I called say, "Hey, send me some emails with your information, your price list, and stuff like that," which I didn't actually have. I mean, I know that I'm generally charging around $2,000 for my videos, but I should have like a tiered out price list so that it's easy for a client to pick which package they want. And I didn't have that. So I sat down and I created it. I used AI between ChatGPT, Canva, and then Gemini, which just having the experience of using the AI is really beneficial. It's funny how something like, I was dreading cold calling. I finally did cold call. I got a warm lead. He said, send me some of your information. And then I had to go build and create that information because I could have just wrote an email and typed it to him and done a one off kind of thing. But I want to create a template so that I could mass do this in mass. I don't have to try to write it every single time. Now I have a set price list, which is pretty cool. So that was this sort of breakthrough that I had where, in one phone call, I ended up getting sort of tasked with this other assignment that I had to do, which I've now done. And that's what we get the Level Up Lando for. I used the AI, created the price sheet. It's a good price sheet, It goes from 2,000 all the way up to 50,000 if you want me to throw a party at your mansion and document it so that we can sell it to a billionaire. Yesterday I got a haircut, which is great. It's a little shorter than I thought it would be, but that's all right because it'll be a little while before I get another one, and so now I can grow into it. So that's good, and I got that done by a friend who hooked me up. So I'll take care of him when I get into a position to do that. But now I can do a video sales letter because I got my hair cut and I'm looking a little bit clean, a little bit more clean cut than I was with it long. And then let's see, I got that job interview this Friday, and then I'm just applying to a bunch of different property management jobs and marketing director jobs, trying to get myself into the more professional category of the work class here, into that, $150,000 kind of range. And God, it's a struggle. I tell you what, I'm really used to it. This is something I'm particularly good at. In that way, I have a lot of skill and practice being basically broke. I usually have a little bit more money than I do right now, but on occasion, I've been here before. The time that I can remember most vividly was when I was in New Zealand, in Queenstown, and I ran out of money. And the day that like I totally went broke, my car sold, and I came up on like 2 grand. So I went from like $0 to 2,000. And I was hanging out with a bunch of people who were also struggling at the time. So I went and bought everybody a Ferg burger. If you've ever been to Queenstown, New Zealand, you know what a Ferg burger is. And I went and bought a bunch of my friends, like 4 or 5 of my friends, all a Ferg burger. And it was a great day. And I really remember how, like, it always ends up working out. It does, but there's the anxiety of the future of how am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to pay the bills? I'm going to pay for food. And now I don't have the answer to any of those questions. And it's scary. If I'm being candid, there's a frightening terror to having zero idea of where your next money is coming from. And as I said, part of the reason that I'm able to sort of manage that and kind of laugh at it a little bit and allow for it to be what's so, because what else am I going to do? It's not like I don't have a job. I don't have any money coming in. So, I guess I could sell some stuff. But the reason that I'm not in a panic state, whereas once upon a time I have been, it's because I've gone through this so many times that I'm kind of an old hand at it now. And I just know that something will happen. Like I said, I'll end up having to borrow money from somebody, and I don't know who that's going to be quite yet. I'm really kind of crossing my fingers that I have enough food to get me through this next week where maybe I'll get a job offer, and then, like I said, if I'm making 100 grand, well, I could borrow two and pay it back right away. So I don't know. But definitely freaking out a little bit. And the only thing that I notice about myself is that it doesn't really matter to me too much what's going on in my life as far as like the struggle goes. That is something that I accept as just a part of being alive. And so, from that sort of worldview and position, I allow for the struggle to be it's factored in. I'm already hedged for it. And so in that way, it doesn't, I'm just so grateful to be alive. And so even though it's a struggle and even though I'm going through really hard times, Alex Ramosi likes to say, it's only going to get easier. This is the hardest it's ever going to be. And so that's kind of comforting because this is pretty hard But at the same time, I'm not dying. I'm living through it. And, again, from that point of view, I'm just so grateful to be alive. And that trumps any of the hard time. And so I find myself, I'll go up to the gym. It's like the only thing that I have to do. Despite being broke, despite being, 43, despite being, no job, I'm in the best physical shape of my life. And that's because I've had this downtime to be able to go to the gym every single day. And I'm going, today was day 52 of swimming on my goal to 100. So, and I'm blessed for that. And in that way, I go up and there's a water slide at the gym that I go to. It's the rec center. And it's a dope water slide. The engineers of that slide, the whole arc, the whole Aspen Rec Center is a really well designed community asset. But that said, I sit in the slide and at the top and I do like a little meditation and a mantra. And one of the things that I say is, I'm grateful for this day and I'm grateful for my life and I'm grateful for this single breath. And I take a big breath like that and I really feel the gratitude. And that's my truth, is that even though my life is incredibly difficult, and I think that for a lot of people, my friends particularly, who look at what I'm doing and living, they're not envious. Even though some of them are, even though some of them recognize that my life is pretty fucking fantastic, there's others that just the volatility and the instability scare them. And it scares me. And like I said, the only reason that I'm not panicked and totally freaking out, and then I can kind of resonate in that gratitude, and that you can kind of, there's something to be said about, being brought to your lowest and then still being grateful and still being happy to be alive and still recognizing that despite your lowest point, despite it being as hard as ever it's ever going to be, you still are grateful to be alive, which then means that you're grateful to have to suffer and struggle and overcome. Which, one other thing that I say in the slide meditation is, I'm grateful for all the challenges, the difficulties, and the adversities that I draw to myself, knowing that I'm capable of overcoming them, and that when I do, I access my highest potential and experience joy. And that's my other truth, is that this is all coming brought to me by me so that I can overcome, which is what I do. That's just what I do. I would rather continue to do it my way and fight the fight that I'm fighting so that I can not have to do it somebody else's way, even if I have to struggle, than conform. Because that to me is worse. Conforming, going to work for somebody else and, making $35,000 a year and being miserable and just, it's the worst. So I'd much rather march to the beat of my own drum, and that is what this show is all about. So, speaking of the show and speaking of what it's all about, let's talk about some things I like. I love these headphones. These headphones are dope as fuck. They're made by Shocks, and they are the open swim headphones. I really like the design. I like that they're banded. That was one of my requirements so that I can put them around my neck like that, because I had some earbuds and they fell out. And then they're waterproof, so I'm using them when I'm swimming. And I've learned that if I can kind of prop them up on my head like this, so they don't go inside your ear. That's the other thing. They sit on the outside, so they're bone conducting. And so I can kind of set them up like this, and then they stay. I think the antenna's in this thing, because when this thing stays above the water, my Bluetooth doesn't cut out. So, Shocks headphones, Shocks open water headphones. I dig them. Big fan. Also, shout out to Jemp Radio, free radio station that plays Grateful Dead, Fish, Humphreys, McGee, Aggie, Spafford, a bunch of different really solid music that I dig. And, given Spotify jacking up their rates on everybody. And when I tried to cancel my Spotify account, they made me log in on the computer. I couldn't do it from my phone, which I thought was a really shady practice, to like make you go through that extra step to be able to cancel your account. And that just made me want to like never use them, pay for money for them again. And so I've really migrated away from Spotify and over to Jump Radio, which is free 24 hours and is always playing music that I'm trying to listen to. So shout out to them as well. And then finally, of course, If you want to support this stream, if you like what you're hearing, if you want to see this show continue and maybe even be produced at a higher level, definitely feel free to contribute there or even over here. Beep. So that is just a couple of shout outs to some brands that I like. You know, I'm not being paid by any of these brands, but at the same time, you know, I really like when I have a product that really stands out for me and is of quality. And both the Shocks headphones as well as um, Jump Radio are two really awesome things they're products that I enjoy in the world, and I like to share things that I enjoy in the world with my audience. Now it's time to take a quick look into the Little Green Book of Accountability as we see what we have coming up. Today is February 11th. Valentine's Day is right around the corner. We just had the Super Bowl on Sunday. Bad Bunny played. It was a super controversial Super Bowl. It was a super controversial Super Bowl. And it wasn't that controversial, really. But apparently, I don't know, people got upset that it was Bad Bunny. So, and a bunch of people didn't watch as a result of that. And now the NFL sort of screwed themselves because they realized that the other people realize that there's room for competition on the day of the Super Bowl at the halftime, and because Turning Point USA put on their own halftime show with Kid Rock, and 6.1 million people tuned into that, and they made a bunch of money. So I don't know. It's just funny how politics end up getting into like entertainment, and that shouldn't happen. But anyways, I digress. My point here is that now we're at Wednesday, the 11th of February. And let's just take a look back to see what we had to do. So we were prepping for my speech. Now, unfortunately, they couldn't get enough judges for the speech contest, and they've canceled it. So now I'm not going to get to compete in this year's speech contest, which is too bad because I had a pretty good speech and I was relatively practiced on it. So that's unfortunate. So we're going to go ahead and cross that out. Edit. All right, we need to edit. We got Justin and Dustin and etc. Because there's a bunch more. Testimonials. I got one, which is great. I got to get one from my other guy. I would love to update my website, but the website only holds like a certain amount of memory, and it's kind of annoying to have to pay more money to be able to like put a video that I want to put up there. And let's see, taxes, profit and loss, and update calendar. All right, what else do we got to do here? Money, or lack thereof. I got to create these sub accounts so that I can automate my money when I finally start making it. Rent and bills, yeah, right. Student loans and debt, yeah, right. And then cold call, which is what I did the other day. So I'm gonna cross that off, but I'm gonna put it back on there because I need to keep doing it. But it just feels good to cross stuff off. So yay, level up, Lando. Good job. You did a good job. Cold call and cold email. And now I've got all the template that I need to send the emails out. So that's pretty cool. So I am pretty happy with that. Okay, we got MK. Okay. Oh, we got to do the video sales letter. That's why I got my haircut. So, all right, that's a couple little things. What else can we do here? Oh, looks like it might start snowing here soon. I need to practice. Let's do camera practice. Okay, that's pretty good for now. So, It's a nice little list of things I can do. Not too much. I've actually really done quite a bit, so I'm gonna give myself a couple more pats on the back. I need them. This is hard. I'm going through it. It's like I'm trying to really watch my verbiage. I'm trying not to say things like I'm broke or I'm struggling or I'm going through a hard time. And so instead, I'm trying to say things like I'm going through a transition. And the money's coming. So, anyways, let's take a look into the Daily Stoic. This is 366 Meditations on Wisdom, Perseverance, and the Art of Living by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. Thanks, guys, for putting the book together. It's helpful to me, and I like that even though, it's a book, at the end of every year, you just start over again and you get to use it again. And so that's awesome. That's really good value for your money. So, oh shit, except for when you tear it like that. God damn. Well, all right, February 11th. So we're going to read this in just a second. But before we do, I'm going to let you into my mind a little bit, and we're going to see if I can't reframe my energetic state by reading from the book. So, where are we at? I'm a little panicked. I went and spent the last of my money today at the grocery store, which, thank God I have the prudency and I'm mature enough to spend my money at the grocery store instead of on drugs or alcohol, which a younger me would have definitely 100% done. And so that's a level up. That's a little pat on the back and just a sign of maturity and growing up. That said, it's gone. The money's gone. I have $0 and a little bit of food. I'm going to need to get some more food here in the next couple of days. So try and realize that on the plus side of that, my situation definitely keeps me in the present because if you only have enough money to last like one day, you can think about tomorrow and the next day, but the truth is that you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow and the next day. So you just focus on being here right now and being here right now. And then beyond that, I'm really working hard to make something happen. And like I said, I've got this interview happening on Friday, I think. I don't know, I haven't heard back from the guy, but that'll be for a restaurant position, and I do not want that job. I just applied to it because nothing else was happening, and of course, this is the one job that I'm getting a second interview for. It pays $28 an hour, and that's not even close to enough money to where you have to start at 5 in the morning. You work till 1, and I don't know. It just seems like it's going to be less than ideal. I don't want to do it, but I will do it if I have to. And so I'm going to try to get this interview on Friday, get them to offer me the job, and then tell them I need to think about it and see if I can't get another through the weekend and then maybe into next week where I can finally, hopefully, get a job offer for something else and then take that instead and have to leave. And then instead of having to take the job at the Limelight and leave it. So, um, you know, I'm in the best shape of my life, and in that way, I'm really proud of myself because that is not an easy task, and it takes consistency and discipline. And it's the one thing that I'm actually doing in my day that I actually can go do because I'm not actually going to work for people and earning an income. So, at the very least, I can be going to the gym, and I am, and I'm working out, and I'm swimming. Today was day 52. So yay! So there's a little bit of pride and accomplishment, and I think that then kind of falls more under determination that I can feel is pushing me forward through the adversity and over the challenges. Um, that said, today was the day that the money ran out, and there's definitely this element of panic and fear that's creeping up. I still have the dominant emotion of determination and accomplishment and continuing to not there's no concern that um, I won't make it through this. It's just that I don't know how, and that's a little concerning. So let's see what the Daily Stoic has to say about any of that. February 11th, hero or Nero. Our soul is sometimes a king and sometimes a tyrant. A king, by attending to what is honorable, protects the good health of the body in its care, and gives it no base or sordid command. But an uncontrolled, desire fueled, overindulged soul is turned from a king into that most feared and detested thing, a tyrant. Seneca Moral Letters 114.24. There's a saying that absolute power corrupts absolutely. At first glance, that's true. Seneca's pupil Nero and his litany of crimes and murders is a perfect example. Another emperor, Domitian, arbitrarily banished all philosophers from Rome. Epictetus was forced to flee as a result. Many of Rome's emperors were tyrants, yet not many years later, Epictetus would become a close friend of another emperor, Hadrian, who would help Marcus Aurelius to the throne, one of the truest examples of a wise philosopher king. So it's not so clear that power always corrupts. In fact, it looks like it comes down in many ways to the inner strength and self awareness of individuals, what they value, what desires they keep in check, whether their understanding of fairness and justice can counteract the temptations of unlimited wealth and deference. The same is true for you, both personally and professionally. Tyrant or king? Hero or Nero? Which will you be? Huh. Well, this is one of the very few times that I haven't really felt this land in one way or the other. That was just kind of a meh one, just for where I'm at right now. I mean, I'm sure on another day that would be powerful and helpful, but right now where I'm at, I guess I feel like I'm being the king and that I'm being a pretty good steward of my body and my life and my community, and that I'm not particularly overindulged in anything, because I'm done. That's what I'm making up to be the reason for the struggle, the reason for the poverty, the reason for the strife and the fear is all to drive me to overcome and to drive me to take on whatever I need to, even if I don't know what that is, to overcome my set experience joy. Because when you overcome yourself, you experience joy. And another thing Alex Hormozy says is the best way to make sure that you are successful is to put yourself into a situation where you have no other choice. And again, just looking at my own personal situation, that's what it feels like. As like I have no other choice. I'm either going to succeed or fail. And right now it feels like I'm failing. So I need to change it up and do some different stuff. Which cold calling was a good start, and I'll get on that. I'm pretty proud of myself for creating that template yesterday. And I need to continue to just sort of beat my feet and pound the numbers and you know, get the word out there and eventually get myself some more clients and keep this thing moving forward. And in the meantime, maybe I can get myself a job that will take off some of the pressure of full time until I can get the customer base and the clientele up to a point where I can leave working for somebody else and make enough money to do this myself and work for myself full time again. So I don't know. We'll see how all that ends up playing out. Aside from that, I'm dealing with dramas at the Eagles Club, which I'm trying to rise above and be more mature than how that club tends to be. And it's tricky. There are a lot of people there who are immature and are trying to drag me down to their level. But I'm doing a pretty good job, being a king and not a tyrant, and being a certain not, aggressive. And it's a fine line to walk, and I'm growing myself into the kind of a man who can put his foot down and be assertive and not be aggressive. And that's a level up. That's a part of myself that I've been working on for a long time. And I'm getting the opportunity to do it. Not to mention, I'm learning all about the rules. Not to mention, I'm showing up as a leader for my club and my community, and all that feels really good. So, with that in mind, um, I just gotta. That's where I try to keep my focus is on the things that I control and the things that make me feel good and make me feel alive and lift me up and bring me positive energy in a reality that is very overwhelmingly harsh and right now particularly cold and to a certain extent, unforgiving and hurtful. And given that that's my external reality, my internal reality is one of peace and harmony and joy and laughter and comedy. And so it's this weird like juxtaposition to live in. It's this weird like duality of having my external reality be what some people might consider to be a nightmare, while my internal reality is, heaven on earth. I'm just so blessed and grateful to be alive. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if I'm not actually in physical pain, I really don't like being in physical pain, but emotional pain I can manage. And, like I said, I'm in the best shape of my life. So physically, I'm really healthy. And emotionally, I'm really healthy because I can withstand the pain. I'm in pain. I'm suffering. It's hard, but I can manage it, which is just an indication of the health and the well-being of my emotional state. So, with that, I'm going to send you out into the world where hopefully your reality is a little more forgiving and friendly than my own. And if it's not, hopefully this inspires you to realize that it's not supposed to be, because you're supposed to be tested in a way where you get to learn about your own emotional health and well being and your mental health and well being. And if those are struggling, that's important to pay attention to. Mine are not. Mine are thriving. I'm doing a really great job mentally, just allowing for my reality to unfold. And physically, like I said, I'm going to the gym every day. Today is day 52 swimming. I'm very grateful for my health. I don't want anything to happen to me. I'm not skiing, so that's, the risk of hurting myself is very low. And in that way, just blessed and grateful to have a strong physical, mental, and emotional health and well being, so that as I'm having to shoulder and take on some of these harder times, that I can do that happily. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that's the whole point of this show, is suffering happily. And if today's episode wasn't an example of that, I don't know what is. So hopefully you can go out into your world and suffer happily, or if you're doing it better than I am, not suffer at all and be happy. With that, I'm your host, landing like a plane, landing like a drone, and I'm taking off.